Our customers come with their IT infrastructure, servers, storage, routers into our data center, and we provide the environment for these equipment. We want that all data centers run on green energy, and in the end we want to be climate neutral within a framework of 10 years.
Okay.
Don't expect success very quickly. It takes time to build something.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm here today with Laurens van Reijen, who is the founder and managing director of LCL. A very warm welcome, Laurens.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here.
So Laurens, you have a degree in economics from the VUB in Brussels, and you started your career more than 30 years ago. You founded LCL almost 20 years ago, so tell us a bit more about yourself and why did you start LCL 20 years ago?
So I studied economics, and after my studies I said, I want to become an entrepreneur. So it immediately, without any, experience, I started like that. So it was very difficult in the beginning, but also fun. And as I didn't have a family yet, so it was like I had the time, and I had the time to learn. And then 20 years ago, I started a data center company. In fact, I took over the assets of a data center which was bankrupted because the operator disappeared in the dot-com crisis. So I took over an asset for almost nothing, and then I started the data center business. But I didn't know really what I started. So it was like, okay, here I have an asset. I think I can do something with it. Yeah. But I don't know yet what. It took us also 6 months to get the first customer, and then suddenly it started rolling. So so that was good.
So tell me a little bit, what is it that LCL does, and what is it that you do really, really well?
So what does LCL? We are a company doing housing of IT equipment. So our customers come with their IT infrastructure, servers, storage, routers into our data center, and we provide the environment, the very safe environment for these equipment. So we provide, power. There's always power for our customers. There's cooling, and of course connectivity, which is very important for our customer base.
Okay. So why is it that sustainability is such an important topic in the data center industry?
Well, sustainability is important already from the beginning, I must say, because each month we receive a power bill and you have to pay that. And always the power price would increase a bit. So each time we looked at solutions to reduce the bill. So that was a bit in our genes, in our DNA, that we have to do it. It's in general in our sector we do this. So each time when we do something new, we build something new, we look at a more efficient data center. And that's 10 years ago there was a metric called PUE, power usage efficiency. And this metric was introduced just by the idea that we need to do it more efficient. So if you have IT equipment consuming 1000 watt, we have to add, for example, 300 or 400 watt for the cooling and for the losses in the UPSs and losses in the transformers. And we try to get this metric as low as possible. But you cannot go to one, and you will always have a loss.
Okay. And so there's a European Data Center Association. You play a driving role in that. Can you tell us a little bit about that association and the programs they implement?
So the European Data Center Association has a policy group. Inside this policy group, we talked with the EU. And last year we did together with cloud providers, CISP, which is a cloud provider association, we decided to do a self-regulatory initiative. So it's voluntary, you can join it, and we defined some things we wanted to do in the self-regulatory framework, and that's first of all, have a low PUE. We think it's feasible for the data centers to have a PUE below 1.3, and we can sometimes do even better. But we want to have for all the new build-outs 1.3, and for all the old data centers, and we renovate also data centers. During the renovation, we need to attain also this 1.3. Okay. Secondly, I think in some data centers, the operator uses water, and water is a scarce product and scarce resource. So we should use the lowest possible amount of water. So that's a metric we're going to develop. It's not yet completely in place. Okay. Another important thing is that all data centers run on green energy. It's in Belgium it's available. It's not so it's easy to get. Maybe in other countries it will be more difficult. But we want to have all green energy, using all data centers green energy. And then there's another metric which is recycling of equipment, and it's the circular economy. We should try to recycle the IT equipment, or use it longer, or use it more efficiently. So that's one of the points we want to raise. And then the last point, which is the most difficult one, is to use the heat of the data center, do something useful with the heat of the data center, which is, in my opinion, difficult, because in the summer we have more heat coming out of a data center, and in the winter we use less. We have less heat, so there's a bit of a mismatch. And also the heat is of a lower quality, so you cannot really use it in a heat network. You need to upgrade it to a higher temperature.
And so the goal is basically to have data centers that are climate neutral. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the end, we want to be climate neutral within a framework of 10 years. Okay. So that's much faster than other companies have to do.
Okay, so the power usage effectiveness, the usage of cooling water, reduce that, use the residual heat, if possible, of the cooling water, go for green electricity, and reuse as much, or the IT materials, get the scarce resources that are in there out as well. Another point that I can imagine is you work with generators as well. There's a system, if there's the power goes down first, you have the batteries and then the generators. How do you work with fuels of the generators?
Yeah, the generators are emitting CO2 because it's a burning of fossil fuel. So we have to do something about that. And sometimes when I talk to the technical people, they test the installation, of course. We need to test that every month. And they just keep the generator running for, let's say, 1 hour. Maybe they can reduce the time. Maybe we can do something else, like using biodiesel. Or maybe in future, when we do a new investment and the technology is available, we could maybe use hydrogen. So there will be solutions, and by talking about this with our suppliers, you automatically get ideas, and our people get ideas. Maybe another solution is, because the power cuts are not so long, run longer on batteries, and when you don't have any power in the batteries, then switch on the generator. So there are many ideas now about this issue, and that's the good thing, because if everybody starts thinking about it, new ideas come up, and that's very important to reach our goals.
So what you're saying also, in fact, is that in our society, there's a bigger awareness for sustainability now, and that also means that in our organizations there's a bigger awareness for sustainability. So that means that you need to create inside your organization every time more and more a higher awareness for sustainability. How do you work on that cultural shift?
Yeah, that's something you need to do. Otherwise, if I just say, okay, we want to do this, and I don't have committed people, then it will never happen. So we have to communicate about it. We have to talk with key people in the company and say, can we do this differently? What are the thoughts? So you need to create a culture of sustainability. Yeah. And then ideas pop up. Maybe you have to send people to a congress. So then it starts living, yeah. and then you should do it continuously. Mm-hmm. So what we also did, we calculated our own CO2 emissions. Mm-hmm. So we had a company coming in, a consultant, doing the calculations, mm-hmm. and then explaining where the emissions are, yeah. And then suddenly you get surprises like, our cooling system has small leaks of gases, and those are also emitters of CO2, because when they get into the open air. So then suddenly people think, okay, maybe we can use different gases, or maybe we can do better maintenance. So all these things, come up when you talk about it, when you do these measurements. Then of course what we are doing now is we are applying for the science-based targets initiative, which where you really put a target. And then, people have to work on it. You start measuring, and so that's an initiative we started. So you have to do this, and this brings also for our people, they want to do good things for Earth. So brings them also purpose, yeah. And I think even we can attract people because we are doing this. Yeah. And it's something else than doing always the same work. It's creativity you create. It's no. So
creating a culture for sustainability, mm-hmm. is good for the company itself, mm-hmm. because you reduce your costs, I can imagine, mm-hmm. and it creates a culture of innovation. People need to be aware, and so, but for that you need to make sure that you measure, mm-hmm. and that you communicate. How do you work with your suppliers or with your clients? Is that also a chain where sustainability is a key factor?
Yeah, we have around 300 suppliers. Mm-hmm. So we need to start communicating with them about what we want to achieve, yeah. Because they have to bring some of the solutions. Mm-hmm. We have to talk with our suppliers, for example, of diesel generators, talk about what can they do, what are their thoughts. You need to involve them, mm-hmm. and automatically the supply chain will follow. Yeah. And the suppliers in the supply chains with good solutions, in the end we will implement it. Mm-hmm. Of course it will have a cost. It's not reducing cost. Each time when we do an investment, we will have a look at the costs. Yeah. But if the cost is a bit higher than a traditional system, we don't care really, because it's for the good. If it would be enormous cost, then maybe you would postpone it a bit and wait until the prices come down. But I'm sure if all the suppliers start thinking with us, also there will be a culture with them helping us, and that's the good thing about the climate neutral pact, because suddenly suppliers starting to think about, okay, all these data centers are signing up, so we need to be part of it. Yeah. So it's a positive vibe you create. Yeah.
And do you also get more and more pressure from your clients then, that they demand certain levels of I don't know, energy efficiency and so on? When we switched from grey energy, and that was a long time ago, to green energy,
that was because of the demand of the customers. But also customers are doing these exercises. Customers are also looking at sustainability. They have maybe ESG programs, and part of that is, of course, the IT infrastructure. And I think also IT managers, CIOs should look at their installed base, look at their servers. Are they running efficiently? Can they run at higher temperatures? Are they right-sized? Are they optimized for a workload? So they can do also certain things. And of course, they use our data center, but they can also help us with becoming more sustainable if they have a more sustainable policy.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing these insights on how LCL is becoming more and more a sustainable organization. Thank you so much for that. Laurens, now you are an entrepreneur for 30 years, running LCL, CEO of LCL for almost 20 years. What is it that really drives you? I mean, you have a passion to develop things, I can imagine, but what is it really that drives you? When are you happy at the end of the week on a Friday evening? So this was really a great week.
Yeah, I'm happy, in general, because everything I do is something I like to do. It's I have a passion for what I'm doing. And I think our sector is not, it looks boring, data centers, but it's not at all boring, because I meet many new startups. I meet people who have also success. For example, I had, Combel as a small customer when they started, and then I saw them growing like a big player, a unicorn. Yeah. And that started in my data center. So and that's fun to see. Yeah. And it's good to see that every year you have something new. Technology is changing so fast, and you see all these developments. And now you see developments in 5G, in fiber to the home, the hyperscalers. So it's not at all boring. And if it's not boring, then I would like to continue.
So you're very successful as an entrepreneur. I mean, you've built quite a company, but I'm sure that on the way you have learned a lot of things, and you've made your failures as well, like we all do. So would you mind sharing what was one of your most brilliant failures and what you learned from it?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the biggest failures was when I had Eurofiber, and I was the founder of that company. And we had investors, and they were all the time saying, you need to expand, you're burning not enough cash. And then at a certain point, the dot-com crisis came, and then suddenly the mind shift they made and said, why did you spend so much money? And then how could you do that? And we had 200 people, so it was not so nice to make a lot of people redundant, but we had to do it to save the company. And then, I had a terrible time of 6 months going to every supplier and make an agreement with him. So we finally managed that. And at the same time, we needed to have 3 customers because we had a complete empty network, just finished, and we didn't have any customers. So it was really a challenge in these difficult times of restructuring, finding these, signing these 3 customers to survive the company. And we managed that, but it was a terrible time. And then when I looked at the financial crisis that happened suddenly also, I was really, it was like a film, that happened also in the technology sector, the dot-com crisis. And the same a bit with what happened to many companies in the Corona time. So much change, and for some companies it was really difficult. and it's I never forget what happened then, and I said I don't want to have that, anymore again. So it's I'm more prudent now.
So what was for you the most important learning from that? Is always keep an eye on your cash flow, or first find clients and then build what they want, or what was for you? I mean, for the dot-com crisis, let's say, or the period. What was your main learning there?
Well, the main learning was that investors can change quickly their minds, and then suddenly everything changes, and then you need to go really into kind of survival mode, and take initiative, and because many companies went bankrupt because managers just closed the door and said, we file for bankruptcy. So we really fought at that time with a small team to survive the company, and that was, it was not fun, but the end result was good, because later on this company became very big. So,
So you're the CEO of the company. How do you see your role? If you look at your agenda on an average week, where do you spend most time? What is really fundamentally the added value that you bring to the company?
So, well, if you look at the change over time, so in the beginning we were with 2 people, and then I did even the patching in the meet me room, so the cross connect, but then later on each time when you hired new people, you delegate that to somebody, changes, and your role changes all the time. Now I have a management team. They take their responsibilities, and that's I have a very good team. So and that makes also my life easier, but also my role changes. Yeah? And now I can work more on strategy. I can work on maybe more the fun side of the business. I can talk more with customers. So it's a completely different role. Probably I'm half of my time working more or less on strategy and talking with personnel, looking at the future, what can we do better, coaching people.
But it's a capital heavy business that you're in, no? You need a lot of financing and so on. You need to do a lot of upfront investments in real estate and so on. So it's not necessarily an easy business. Huh?
No, it's not so easy because customers will not buy on a plan. So they want to see the space because they want to move in 6 months. So you cannot build a data center in 6 months. So we need to always pre-invest. But of course, over time you build cash flow, which allows you to build already some space for the future. So that's good. And then one of the nicest things we did in the last period, we signed also a hyperscale customer. So that's a cloud provider who's entering Belgium. So that was also a bit of game changer for our company, able to do that. And yes, we invested nearly every year. I don't remember one year without any investments. It started with small investments, but each time it becomes larger, and the investment we are now doing is 28 million. So we need the support of course, of infrastructure funds who help us with financing these investments.
And you still see your business and your category that you're in, there's still a big future, there's still a big growth, or there's not a potential that the hyperscalers are going to take away your business?
Yeah, well, every 5 years I'm thinking about, what will happen? Will our business still exist in the coming years? And what are the new trends? And suddenly you have the cloud, will it kill our business? Or
well, it didn't.
It didn't kill our business, so that's good. But you need to, follow all the trends. Maybe, compute will become very small, or there will be new techniques. Sustainability becomes important. So then you say, okay, we need to have a strategy for that. Yeah. So that's.
And that's why that's your focus today.
Yeah, that's why you, a CEO should, work on that together with, with your team, but also, look around, see what other data centers are doing, what are the trends.
Okay. Now, looking back at your 30 years career, Laurens, and these videos are watched by young, dynamic, and ambitious people. If people are watching, also want to become a successful business owner, a successful entrepreneur, what would your advice be? Or what would your advice be to your younger self when you were 25 or so? So what is it that you could advise ambitious entrepreneurs to become also successful CEOs of a technology company?
Yeah, so I think you need to dream a bit, otherwise it will be very difficult. And also on your way you will see opportunities. Don't focus on one thing. Maybe you do something and then suddenly you see, okay, here is the the spot I want to be in. So you need to stay open-minded. Yeah. And then, of course, don't expect success very quickly. Yeah. It takes time to build something, yeah. and also you have to learn yourself. In the meantime, when you're doing things, you have to learn, and you have to develop yourself. Yeah. If you're young and ambitious, maybe you want to do things fast, and so in the meantime you need to learn. Not only about your market, but also about management, entrepreneurship, yeah. And I recommend a very good book, which is Beyond Entrepreneurship, okay. 2.0. It's a book written by Jim Collins. He wrote a book, a very successful book, Good to Great, yeah. But that's more for bigger companies. That's for very large companies who change and become very successful. But he wrote also a book for entrepreneurs. Okay. And that is funny because the book was written 20 years ago and he did an update last year. Okay. So all the things he learned from larger companies were added in extra chapters. So I recommend somebody who's an entrepreneur, even like me, to read once in a while such a book, yeah. Because it gives you ideas. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that tip, by the way. I really appreciate that. So Laurens, thank you also for your time and for coming here to our studio. I enjoyed talking to about your business, about sustainability, and so all the best to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.